Long ago, beyond the thick forests and shining rivers of Okwani land, there was a powerful kingdom called Aniudo Kingdom. The land was rich with yam bands, tall palm trees, and warriors whose names were featured in many villages. The king of Aniudo had only one daughter. Her name was Adaezeora, meaning the king's daughter who brings honor to the people. Adaezeora was not like other princesses. From childhood, strange things happened around her. Sick beds recovered in her hands. Dying flowers bloomed again when she touched them. Even wounded hunters healed faster after she prayed for them. The villagers whispered among themselves, Obunwammo, is she a child of the spirits? They will ask, but her mother, the queen, Nkemdili, always smiled gently. No, she would say, she was born with the blessing of Chuku. As Adaezeora grew older, her healing gifts became stronger. One night, an old blind woman came to the palace gates during a heavy rainstorm. The guards wanted to chase her away, but Adaezeora stopped them. The old woman held Adaezeora's hands tightly and said with a trembling voice, Your gift was not given for palace walls. Many people were crying for help far away from here, my dear. Before dawn, the old woman disappeared mysteriously. That same night, Adaezeora had a strange dream. She saw a young man lying on a golden bed, surrounded by candles. His breathing was weak. Around him stood many crying people dressed in royal clothes. Then a voice echoed, Go east before the third moon fades, or a kingdom shall fall. Adaezeora woke up shaking. The next morning, despite her parents' fear, she decided to leave the kingdom secretly to help those in need. She removed her royal beads and expensive clothes and dressed like an ordinary village girl. Only her mother knew the truth. Queen Kendilin hugged her tightly before she left. Never forget who you are, she whispered with tears in her eyes. For many weeks, Adaezeora traveled from village to village. She healed children with fever, helped wounded farmers, and prayed for barren women. People began calling her Nwonyenyogo, the woman of healing. One evening, she arrived at a rubbled kingdom called Ogbobodo. The atmosphere there was heavy with sorrow. No drums, no dancing, no laughter. At the village square, Adaezeora heard people talking anxiously. The prince is dying. The gods have rejected the kingdom. No healer can save him. The prince's name was Prince Chukwudi, the only son and heir of King Ezeudo of Ogbeobodo. Months earlier, he had fallen mysteriously ill after returning from a hunting trip in the Forbidden Forest. Since then, his body had become weak like dry leaves. The king had invited the greatest healers from many lands. Rich priestesses arrived with long feathers and golden staffs. Powerful dibias came carrying charms and cowries. Some burned strange powders. Some performed costly sacrifices. Some demanded bags of gold before even touching the prince. Yet the prince grew worse every day. Out of desperation, King Ezeudo made a public declaration. Whoever heals my son shall become his wife and future queen of Ogbeobodo Kingdom. The announcement shocked the entire land. Soon, the palace became crowded with beautiful maidens, wealthy princesses, and ambitious healers, all competing for the reward. When Adaezeora arrived at the palace gates in her simple wrapper and dusty sandals, the guards laughed loudly. Look at this poor girl. Did you come to sweep the palace? Even the princesses mocked her. One tall priestess wearing heavy coral beads sneered, "Healing is not for hungry village girls." The women around burst into laughter. Adaezeora lowered her eyes quietly and said nothing. But as she stood there, she suddenly heard a faint voice inside her spirit. "The prince is running out of time." That night, thunder roared across the kingdom. Inside the royal chamber, Prince Chukwudi stopped breathing for several moments. The palace exploded into panic. Some servants began to cry openly. The king himself fell to his knees. One by one, the famous healers admitted defeat. "He cannot survive till morning," they said. Adaezeora stepped forward softly. "Please," she said calmly, "allow me to see him." The room erupted with angry laughter again. But the queen mother noticed something unusual: peace. While everyone else trembled with fear, the poor young woman stood completely calm. Finally, with no hope left, the king shouted, "Let her try." Adaezeora entered the prince's chamber alone. The room was cold. Candles flickered strangely. The prince's skin looked pale as ash. As she touched his forehead, a terrifying vision flashed before her eyes. She saw the forbidden forest, a hidden shrine, a jealous palace chief, and poison mixed with sacred river leaves. Adaezeora gasped. The prince had not been caused by spirits. He had been poisoned. She waved the powers, and suddenly footsteps approached outside the chamber. Someone did not want the prince to recover. Adaezeora quickly mixed herbs with water and began praying softly. Hours passed. Outside, tension filled the palace. Then suddenly, Prince Chukwudi rose from where he had lain for months. The chamber doors opened, and he walked out slowly by himself. Alive, strong, breathing normally. For a moment, silence swallowed the entire palace. Then cries of joy erupted everywhere. The queen fainted from happiness. The king wept openly. Villagers danced through the streets till sunrise. But while the kingdom celebrated, the guilty palace chief tried to escape secretly during the night. Before he could flee, Prince Chukwudi recognized him as the man who had given him a special drink before the hunting trip. The chief confessed everything. He had wanted the prince dead so his own son could take the throne. The entire kingdom was shocked. Days later, the king fulfilled his promise. A grand marriage ceremony was held for Princess Adaezeora and Prince Chukwudi. Kings from neighboring lands attended the celebration, but the greatest surprise came during the wedding feast. Trumpets suddenly sounded from outside the palace. Warriors dressed in royal blue entered the palace. Then an elderly king stepped forward. It was King Dingba of Anyudo. Everyone came silent as he announced proudly, "The woman you mocked as a poor girl is my daughter, Princess Adaezeora of Anyudo Kingdom." The priestesses who once laughed at her lowered their heads in shame. King Ezeudo stood in shock, but Prince Chukwudi smiled warmly and held Adaezeora's hand. "I loved her before knowing she was royal," he declared before the crowd. The people cheered loudly, and from that day onward, Queen Adaezeora became known across many lands as the princess whose hands carried life. Her story was told for generations beside moonlit fires, reminding people that true greatness does not always wear gold and that kindness can shine brighter than a crown. Thank you for watching. That's the end of the story.